Hi everyone. For my final draft, I reviewed the client's budget, retirement plan, and investment portfolio together. I also evaluated my peer feedback and added a sensitivity analysis to show how different assumptions could affect the recommendations. And I put that here. First, our client made several important key assumptions. The retirement plan assumed that the client was 25, would retire at 60, live to 100, and need $6,000 per month during the retirement. It also assumed a 10% investment return and did not include inflation. I think the client chose those assumptions because they created a simple calculation and made the retirement goal appear easier to reach and to plan for. However, I personally thought the 10% return and the lack of inflation was something they needed to account for. Um, while the 10% return was great for their long term planning, the client also divided the portfolio equally among four funds with the highest 1 year returns. I think they might have believed that the portfolio was diversified because the fund names represented different financial outlooks like growth, value, natural resources, and global investments. However, all four of their choices were in equity funds, so the portfolio was still aggressive but not diversified. Choosing funds mainly because of recent performance also created recency bias in their decision making, and I previously changed the retirement assumptions to include 3% inflation and a 7% return while saving, and 5% return during retirement. These changes increased the monthly need for retirement to $6,000 a month, approximately $16,883. The retirement goal increased from about $704,000 to $3.5 million, and the required monthly contribution increased to about $1,900. My sensitivity analysis shows that the results can change if we adjust for the future financial environments. If inflation is 4%, the required monthly contribution would increase to about $2,726. If the return saving was only 5%, it would increase to about $3,000. And then while changing the retirement age to 65 would lower the requirement to about $1,400 because the client receives 5 additional years to save. The assumption I had the least confidence with is the 7% return while saving. Since market returns are pretty uncertain and depend on the client's portfolio, investment costs and reaction to market losses is something we still don't know on technicality. I would have much greater confidence in these recommendations if I knew the client's current retirement balance, their employer match rate, other investments they have, their salary growth, and risk tolerance that they have. This was something I mentioned in my previous videos. For the retirement plan, I recommended keeping the contribution at 8% for now, or about $407 per month. Their budget only had $23.82 as a monthly cushion after my recommended changes, so immediately contributing the full 19,000 or $1,944 is not realistic. The contribution should gradually increase as the client's income rises or their expenses decrease. For the portfolio, I recommended replacing the 25% Lord Abbott growth fund position with the Vanguard 25% retirement 2060 fund. Since this added broader diversification in their portfolio, and it also lowered their weighted average expense ratio to 0.8625%. I also accounted for that as well. Let's see, where did it go? Yes. But then otherwise, I kept the other three retirement funds the same. Because I wanted this to be like a limited first step in their portfolio without doing a full readjustment, without like knowing more about the client. Most of my peer feedback was positive, and it didn't provide me too many avenues for proposed changes. But the module concepts made me kind of reevaluate and check over everything. The only specific suggestion I got was to improve my transitions between the workbooks, which I hopefully did a little bit better in this video, and to make my assumptions a little more flexible. So I personally agreed with this and accepted it. In doing so, I added the retirements change prepped section for this final draft. My main recommendations were basically the same. My feedback didn't tell me about any errors or provide me with any changes or recommendations to my approach in this assignment. The two most important lessons I learned that our recent performance does not guarantee future results and that financial decisions cannot be evaluated separately. The budget determines how much can be saved, and the assumptions determine the retirement goal, and the portfolio affects the risk and the potential return for the client. My final recommendation is to keep the 8% contribution, increase it gradually, make the proposed fund change, and update the plan when more information becomes available about the client. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, leave them in a comment for me so that I can address them. Thank you.